What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're going to jump in with some Destiny 2 and Forsaken DLC news and updates. So we have words about the final boss in the Forsaken expansion, raid bosses and how this all ties together. There's some pretty interesting hints there and some stuff about story, but we also have words about future content, economy and currency changes in the DLC, clarification on collections, an increase to strike and raid catalyst drop rates. This will be coming in the next update for Destiny 2. We have more words on 400 power gear, how some of the armor is going to work, a discussion about factions becoming permanent. There's some other stuff to talk about regarding characters, the DLC, some of the pre-order bonuses, how you can obtain those without pre-ordering, and a bunch of other stuff. So if you guys enjoyed this video, a like rating below is super appreciated. As always, I appreciate you guys tuning in. For now, let's jump straight into the news. So before I get on to new information about DLC, a couple of interesting things to point out. Dropslash on Reddit actually figured out that there's been something hidden in the lore tab on the Telesto for quite some time, and this hints towards the Forsaken expansion and some of the characters. So if you look at the main lore tab for the Telesto, got a bunch of text here with some pretty interesting stuff. Of course, it does reference Aldrin right there, but if you take the first letter from each word, you do actually get the message, Crow untrustworthy, desires power. So of course this is pretty interesting. It actually sounds like it comes from Varix. The Crow is of course Prince Aldrin, and considering we've also heard that Varix is supposedly going to be in this expansion or something, if this was Varix saying this, then it at least gives us a bit of a suggestion to his allegiance at this time, or at least suggests that he's not with Aldrin. So that's some pretty interesting stuff. But on the subject of Aldrin, Scott Taylor said with the raid in Forsaken and the space in the Dreaming City, there's this tower that you really want to climb, but the story will be tied to the raid. This time you won't just be fighting a bigger version of the bad guy, but it pulls the whole thing together and really delivers on that satisfying conclusion. So you could really read a bunch of stuff from that statement. You won't just be fighting a big version of the bad guy, so perhaps we'll actually fight a different enemy. Aldrin won't necessarily be inside of the raid. Obviously hearing this doesn't necessarily rule him out, but we won't be seeing a Oryx style raid boss, you know, that's a big version of a character we've been hunting throughout the campaign. So I'll be curious to hear what you guys think that could be. But another thing to mention before we get into the systems and things like that, TSABot posted to Reddit that they've got to make an Ace of Spades replica for Nathan Fillion, and they'd also made a bunch of replica gifts that Bungie were actually giving to voice actors. If you look at the Cade 6 one though, it says, "Thank you for bringing Cade 6 to life, you were magnificent." And then you have a quote from Cade right there. They also made the speaker's mask with "Thank you for inspiring a generation to be brave," and this was a gift for Bill Nye, who actually played the speaker. But then on Reddit, a lot of folks started speculating because there was also another one for Lance Riddick, who plays Commander Zavala, that says, "Thank you for bringing Zavala to life. Your voice taught us what makes a Guardian a Guardian." And then we have a quote from Zavala in D2. And so on Reddit now, a lot of folks are speculating, is Zavala actually going to get the chop, considering all of these are kind of past tense references. Thank you for bringing Zavala to life. And then in the case of Cade, you were magnificent. And of course, we know that Cade will no longer be in Destiny 2. And so a lot of folks are wondering, does this mean Lance Riddick, who plays Zavala, is also no longer working on Destiny 2, which would suggest that he is potentially going to be cut out of the story, maybe in a similar fashion to how Cade was at some point in the future. Of course, it is pure speculation based on what we're seeing here. I didn't really want to speculate too much personally. I just wanted you guys to know that this is a thing, and I'll be curious to hear if you guys have any thoughts on it. But now let's get into some more DLC stuff. Somebody asked about items, economy changes, and redundancy of stuff. DMG said, "We'll make sure to give a heads up on how currencies and economy are changing. I don't think anything is going to be useless in the sense that it's just an item in your inventory and you'd need to discard, but there's still work to be done by the development team. Once we know more, we'll get more info to you." So it doesn't sound like anything will become completely redundant and have no utility whatsoever, but it definitely sounds like certain materials could become somewhat irrelevant going forward. We'll have to wait for more details about that. Of course, we're getting collections in Forsaken, and there has been a bunch of conversation about that. A thing to add on this subject is that Bungie actually said, "We don't like keeping some items from experiencing the full collections treatment, so we're looking at a long-term solve for storing your exact perk rolls in collections." Scott Taylor had hinted towards this in an interview a couple of weeks back, where he said that random perk rolls would be tied into the collection system. Of course, this feature itself sounds like it's still in development and it might happen after Forsaken, but essentially what we'd be able to do is store a specific version of a weapon. So if you had a god roll, you could essentially add the god roll to onto the collection and it would remember that specific role. I'm also wondering, because of the way Scott Taylor spoke about it before, whether collections, if you can actually view a weapon you don't have or maybe one that you do have, whether it could also display all of the perk roll possibilities that you could get on that weapon. That would mean you would essentially know what each weapon is capable of rolling out, but the main thing is that Bungie want to allow us to save specific rolls of weapons in that collection in the future. Before we talk about more system stuff, on the subject of the DLC pre-order bonuses, of course you can get Cayde's exotic stash, but to point out from this small print, it says you can also attain these through gameplay starting on or around the 1st of the 1st, 2019, subject to change and availability. So any of the pre-order stuff that you get on September 4th will be added to the game at the beginning of 2019, kind of similar to Cold Heart in vanilla Destiny 2. But we've heard that stuff we have in our inventory right now will safely be able to delete and retrieve it in September, so the collection system has been tracking everything since Warmind launched. Somebody asked for clarification on what consumables are, because they did say this does not include consumables, and Pop and Warlock It, a Bungie dev on Reddit, said that only meant the things in the consumables tab and the modifications tab, come to think of it, of your inventory screen. Shaders are being tracked, so if you have them right now, collections will know. Somebody asked which items from year 1 inventory will collections track. I'm assuming correctly that these are legendary and exotic items only, but Cosmo confirmed all items and all rarities. Go grab that common hand cannon if you like. So items of any rarity will be recognized by the collection system, which is pretty awesome. Now we've got a few more things to round up about the update coming in July, and this includes decreased rarity of strike and raid catalysts. So somebody asked about this. DMG says he can't give specific numbers, but strike catalysts will be given a slight adjustment to drop chances in update 1.2.3. The Skyburner's Oath catalyst will also be given a slight adjustment to its drop chance as well. Both adjustments will help these catalysts to appear a bit more often, but we want to make sure these rewards don't drop too often, thus removing incentive for players to re-engage with strikes or raids. He adds that higher scores will continue to provide the best chances to actually get these dropped. I think it's definitely a good thing if they allow these catalysts to drop more regularly. I believe right now they're simply too rare inside of strikes, especially considering the current loot systems. I don't feel like we have multiple reasons to play through these strikes just yet. You can have something really rare that's part of the loot table for something, but when one item which is incredibly rare is the loot table for something and it's going to take a ridiculously long time to obtain, I think that really turns a lot of players off. So hopefully we'll see positive changes there. But also, here's another thing, folks are looking into letting players choose strikes from the director. So Bungie are looking to add strikes back onto the map essentially. Next though, let's talk about 400 power armor, weapons, and the Solstice of Heroes event. I got a ton of questions following Bungie's blog post about this. So just to clarify how it's going to work, the summer update comes on July 17th, and this has the features of 1.2.3, so that's the prestige raid layers, bounties, and all of those kind of things. Solstice of Heroes, the summer event, starts later on July 31st. This will have new exclusive armor which drops at 400, so everybody is locked out of getting any 400 armor until Solstice of Heroes goes live. However, with the prestige raid layers, they will have the ability to drop 400 weapons if you can complete the entire thing, and that's as of July 17th. Do bear in mind though that by the time 400 power is actually, possible in game, we'll have, 4, maybe 3 weeks until the Forsaken DLC drops. So that whole 400 light level phase is going to be over pretty quickly, and by the time most people are getting near to it, I'd imagine the DLC is going to be literally around the corner. We'll probably get a trailer in the next couple of weeks, some more clarification from Bungie about how things will work. But there was a conversation about faction rallies on Reddit, and a lot of people stressing that they would really like to see factions in general be in the game permanently. DMG said, "We have seen a lot of feedback on this. We know you enjoy the content having something to work towards, but a lot of players have stated that condensing that down to a week creates a lot of anxiety to try and finish in time. We've passed this feedback along to the team and let them know that players would rather have faction rallies be permanent." So pretty interesting, they're definitely taking this on board. For me personally, I think we should have factions all of the time in the game, especially with random roles coming back. They should have, the full vendor inventory available for all of the tower vendors and then re-roll those weapons on a weekly basis. That was a really exciting part that we had in the final year of Destiny 1. Every single reset, there was a ton of anticipation, excitement, and conversation about the weapon rolls available in the tower, and I think having permanent factions factions with random roles, essentially like D1 would provide a lot of content and a lot of stuff for people to go after, but I think we should also see faction rallies that have their own separate loot table. They could carry on more or less like they are now, but they would have, you know, a specific set of items that would come up that week and then another permanent set of stuff. I'd be curious to hear what you guys think about that, but on the subject of factions, Bungie posted a bunch of kind of mini faction trailers, so I'm going to run them just in case you want to check them out.
New monarchy is here for you, Guardian. We are honored to serve the city.
There would be war, always. We must create the future we hope to see. And creation is a violent business.
Dead Orbit takes care of those loyal to it. Protect what's here, Titan, but be ready for what's next. Will you lend your strength to Dead Orbit?
So pretty cool to get a look at those, just in case you don't follow Bungie on other social media. But that is going to pretty much sum the video up, guys. Lots of stuff to talk about, as I said. I'd be curious to hear any of your thoughts on it, but if you guys have enjoyed it, a like is very much appreciated below. Also, be sure to hit subscribe if you're new to the channel and you want to keep up to date with all of the news for Destiny 2 and the Forsaken DLC. Also, turn on those notifications, hit the bell next to the subscribe button, and YouTube will hopefully sometimes let you know when I post a video. Also, my partners over at Now Drinks are running a pretty awesome deal this week where you can get 45% off their starter pack for Now Drinks. As I mentioned before, these are designed for gamers, but are essentially the healthier option versus, you know, stuff filled with sugar and caffeine and all of that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in that, check it out in the link below and you can save a bunch of cash with free worldwide shipping right now. But guys, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate all of the support you've shown me, but for now, I hope you guys have an awesome day.